Everyone, Christian here, and I'm going to do a little quick vlog on cold protection because it is pretty cold here. It is about 52, 54 degrees and breezy. So in northern terms, it's probably about 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's not something that we're normally accustomed to here in Florida. So we kind of I have the palms and other plants here kind of all together. It makes it easier if you have all your potted palms together. If you have a big blanket, a big cloth, what you want to do is you want to keep the ability of the frost to get down into the plants. So if you can bunch your potted plants together, if you can get them in a garage, that's a good idea right there. Also a paint job would be a good idea, but that's for another time. So yeah, just if you can kind of put down like 2 stones, wrap it over the plants, a couple more stones, concrete blocks, whatever it may be. If you don't have room in your garage, that's probably the simplest and easiest way. Kind of just making your own little circular house of sorts. You gotta be careful in winds like this, though. You don't want to bend any crowns. Bromeliads, it's not as big of a deal. And palms, be careful. Your tallest palms are going to be holding up some of the weight of that frost cloth. So these bromeliads they're not really that cold sensitive. They just happen to be here. They're easy to put right here. And so when you go out into the yard, one thing you can do with smaller plants, really small plants, put them in a cooler. It's insulated. And I just happen to have an exceptional number of coolers for some reason. So you can do that. When it comes to plants that you can't move, ones in the ground, well, it's a little bit different because, well, you can't just, you got to kind of build something around them. For smaller plants, for example, this guy right here, even though he needs a good weeding, you can put a 5-gallon bucket over them, and that'll definitely help with the wind. The wind can be as brutal as the cold can be for some of these palms. They don't like to transpire water, and these cold drying winds are really what keeps this area from being a real tropical climate. So over here next to the deer that have seen better days and the lawn that it needs to get mowed is my Corypha experiment. It's not getting any water except for the water that comes out of the sky. It's been in the ground for well over a year and a half, and it's doing all right. It's not growing as fast as if I were to take perfect care of it, but again, I know how it'll grow if I take perfect care of it. So this is kind of a what-if situation. Is it hardy to Florida's climate? You know, no irrigation, no fertilizer. Anyway, 5-gallon bucket would be perfect over that. Just kind of tuck the leaves in. Make sure you don't bend the crown. Bending the crown can lead to an early death as soon as the frost can. So, you know, it's not looking great. It's got the cold winds. Again, it's going to hit about 38 here, which may bring about some patchy frost, but if you're anywhere north of here, you're probably going to get real frost. So, if you want to bundle stuff up, here's a little bit taller palm, Roystonia oleracea from Venezuela. Doesn't like the cold. If you can get frost cloth, if you can get some light blankets, just wrap it up. Keep it, make sure the frost does not get onto it. That would be ideal. You can tie it up, you can tie the whole plant kind of together. Another thing you can do is you can use Christmas lights, and use caution when using Christmas lights because Christmas lights can fry the crown shaft on crown shafted palms. And those are the ones you tend to be wrapping up because non-crown shafted palms tend to be warmer, tend to be more cold hardy. So use caution. The newer Christmas lights tend to not have what I call hot spots, like really hot lights that can actually, you know, cause a burn. You can actually see a black spot where the light was. So with this palm, this is kind of just too tall for a bucket. Obviously, it's about 3 feet tall, and you have to wrap that up. Again, another experiment without the water, just a seasonal flooding that kind of comes through here. So you can try and use supplemental heating. You can try and use what I call a torpedo, the propane burners that you can get from Home Depot, and that are for construction use. And you can blow it in the general area. You can try and use a fan to blow the air around. Anything that'll kind of keep the frost away. Now, big nurseries, they use, up in the sky, they'll use helicopters, and they pay a lot of money for that. If you can imagine, it's $2,000 an hour with a 4-hour minimum. And they'll fly around your property, and the wind itself will keep the frost off. Other people have turbines on their property. I think you guys might have seen that in another vlog. And I am a little bit different. I'm a little bit jaded to the whole protect everything and make sure it's all warm. I plant things, and if they live, they live, and if they die, then they die. Now, I think that there are people who are in certain stages of collecting, growing, and planting palms, and there was a time when I used to protect my plants. I would make sure that every cold snap, you know, I'd see a frost coming, I'd be well prepared. Now, there's different stages. The next stage is, oh, the frost is coming tonight, and I haven't done anything, and it's, you know, 8 o'clock, 8:30 at night, and it's going to be freezing in about 4 or 5 hours, and what do? And I'm just going to kind of throw stuff on there and hope for the best. And then there's the, well, it's going to freeze, or there's going to be a frost. Just let Mother Nature take its path. And honestly, that is going to be I think in the end, what most people will end up kind of gravitating towards, because it really is, if you spend 10 years protecting a plant and one time that you just don't do it right, you are going to be very upset when it dies. And I've had to go through that many times, and it's not fun. And I've just kind of given up on growing certain plants outside of a greenhouse. It's just not going to work out. So yeah, I mean, most of these plants can handle 32 degrees, so I'm not going to be covering any of these. They can do it just fine. But if you want to cover your plants, by all means do so, because I mean, especially if they're cold sensitive. I mean, that's sometimes I've learned to just not fight Mother Nature. You know, if a flood is coming, it's kind of the equivalent of trying to take a piece of plywood and pushing water away from in a flood. It's just, you can try and you can give it your most effort, but in the end, Mother Nature's going to win, and things are going to happen the way Mother Nature intended them to be. So that is kind of my take on cold snaps here in Florida. It's a little bit different in other areas, like in California. People tend to get hardier plants that tend to take these cold snaps better, but here we all like to grow tropical palms, and they will burn. And sometimes they'll burn really badly, sometimes they'll even die. And it's just a matter of what the climate is like and how much you protect them. But in the end, palms are just going to get really tall. And they're not going to, you can't protect that palm. It's just going to be on its own. Now that palm can handle 25 degrees if it needs to. So, you know, again, that's one of those palms that just doesn't require irrigation or anything. It just kind of does its own thing. So that's up to you how much effort you want to put into it, because some plants are going to require a lot of effort. If you're growing a coconut, like for example this, which looks terrible, and I understand it's again another trial thing. If you're growing a coconut in a zone 9 climate, be prepared to eventually lose this coconut. As much as you love it, when it gets tall, there's nothing you can do about the cold at 20 feet. If you want to build a greenhouse that's 20 feet tall to encase your coconut, go ahead and do it, but you might find it to be quite prohibitively expensive and time consuming. So I will leave it there. That seems like a very jaded view, but it's an honest view, and I hope that everyone appreciates that. And I wish everyone the best in the cold snap. I'm going to go inside before my fingers get numb, because I'm not used to the cold. And I'll see you guys next time.